You're live, Sheets.
Hey, what's going on? So,
Hey, yeah,
C2A1 needs our help. Okay. Well, that's what I'm here for. C2A1, what can we do for you?
what's
Who
that?
should I pick in my survivor pick? Okay, so we'll get to the other stuff in a second.
Yeah, do
So
that.
we have actually a Discord channel that we dedicate to survivor pick stuff. So you can feel free to join that and talk about that on there. But I'll just let you know that that I can't really give like individualized recommendations for Survivor like that for a number of reasons. Number one, it's not fair, and number two, I don't know like the character of your pool. I don't know who's in what. I don't know what everybody's taking. So I guess I'll start. Listen, I apologize. We apologize to everybody for site issues, which are completely not that it's an excuse. It's completely beyond our control.
Yes.
There's a kind of a U.S. spread issue with a couple of different website providers, and actually several other DFS sites have been affected by it as well. So again, we do apologize for that, and we're trying to get that going, but and that will be fixed sooner than later. But we should probably focus on the slate, because now we're like even more dedicated to like making sure everybody wins millions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it also is another reminder that above all else, you should be in the Discord channel, and above all else, you should be at live. So hopefully, you guys are here for that.
Yep, absolutely. And just to give, as Sheets mentioned, it is sadly out of our hands. We're doing everything we can. I've got an ongoing chat going right now with the people over there, and we're trying to figure it out. But in the meantime, we can get to what we're actually going to try to do today. I know it's really difficult without the projections, but Sheets did a great job of getting his stuff up in the Discord, which is a workaround that we're, that at least we have.
Goldie did as well, by the way.
Oh, Goldie did as well. That's wonderful. Yeah. So we have at least we're trying to create a workaround for you guys. So make sure you're in the Discord channels and getting all that information. I'll attach the Discord channel just in case there's anybody who's not there. I know there's a couple people who weren't in there already who asked me about it. So let me just pop it in here. And then we'll get into position by position plays and talk about some stacks we like, et cetera.
Sure.
And hopefully get out of here enough time. By the time we get out of here, maybe we'll have our site back up again.
Yeah, I mean, listen, these are things that just happen. It's not. This is not the biggest deal. Okay, this will be fixed if it's not half hour, if it's not in 2 hours, not in 8 hours, whatever. Long. It's just something that happens in technology. It's the way that's the way it is. Just so you guys know, I posted everything in the Discord, the NFL projections. I posted the MLB projection. I'm not going to be able to update those, I don't think. Hopefully the site is back by the time Showdown happens later. If it is, you'll see the Showdown projections up there. If it's not, I will put them here in the Discord, and maybe just maybe if we're in the mood, maybe I'll do a quick Showdown thing or something later. I never really am in the mood, like after a long day of getting beat up in the NFL, to do Showdown, to do a Showdown video or whatever. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I just want to point out one quick thing. MJ just mentioned, use the SaberSim free trial if you want to get projected. If you're desperate for projections right now that are separate from Sheets and Goldies as they posted in the Discord. They do a free 5-day free trial. You can do that if you want to get something up really quickly. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, Bobby, you guys hear me? I was gonna mention that when I was gonna talk too. Is like you can sign up over there using any email for 5 days free, and then move over Sheets and Goldies projections that they gave you guys in the Discord and take them over there and upload them, so you guys would have pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. And all right, so let's with that said, let's get into the plays this week. Let's get into what we're doing. And I'm going to start off with you, Rohde. We'll start talking some quarterbacks, which will sort of naturally lead us into some stacks.
We're going to do positions, or we're going to do stacks first?
We can start with stacks. I always either start or end with stacks. But yeah, we can start with stacks. Quarterbacks usually lead right into it, but we could start with stacks and then talk about some quarterbacks, I guess. Start with that, Rohde.
All right, yeah, guys, welcome in here. Stacks today, pretty much similar to what my picks show. What we did, the DFS picks. I like, maybe a little over on the Josh Allen stack. I think I know he's going to be chalky, but I kind of feel like we should be over on that a little bit more in that game. I like some of the Jared Goff side in the Seattle game. I'm still getting to some Green Bay love. Jordan Love stack, so I like that. I'll probably always have a Justin Herbert stack, and then that KC Jacksonville game stack that we like. I like Trevor Lawrence, and then I'll do like a Mahomes Kelsey stack, and then the Indy and Houston stack. I kind of focus on more today.
That makes a lot of sense. Sheets, how about you for stacks?
Okay, first, in just to provide some context, I'm playing 150 in the lottery today. So when I'm talking about my exposure, is going to be based on that. And I'm also playing one lineup in the power sweep and one lineup in the spy. The power sweep like a 3 max, and the spy is a single entry. So those lineups are going to be a little bit different. But for the purpose of the Millie Maker, yeah, I am. I actually had to pare down my Buffalo exposure a little bit. I was getting a little bit too much for my liking. I just felt there's a little more variance in NFL than I was getting. So they're still my highest owned stack in the Millie Maker. And then after that, I actually have a group of 5. After that, that's KC, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Seattle, and Tampa, actually. Those are the next ones that round out the Millie Maker. As far as my single entry, my 3 max, I really, and this is actually my one sports bet. I don't know if I'm actually going to bet it, but pretty confident in this one. I think Jacksonville has a really good game today. I like Jacksonville's offense a lot today. I think they cover the spread as well. But nonetheless, I think Jacksonville is my favorite of them all for single entry and 3 max. So that's where I'm at. Now, I don't know if you want to get into this now or when we get to positions, but there is actually one thing that I had to do when I scripted, one rule I had to make regarding Buffalo. And I'm gonna wait till we get to positions to get to that, but I got to remember. But I will remember.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, like I too have the highest ownership on the Buffalo side of things. But I did get a little bit creative. And again, we'll talk about positions, but like I am using some of the, believe it or not, I didn't want to play him in Showdown, but I'm going to play him on the Giants slate. I'm going to play a little bit of the Hardy to get a little different. You can use either tight end from Buffalo. I think that most people seem to prefer Kincaid a little bit to Knox. I'm fine with that. I have a little bit of both. But I think that's the Buffalo stack. I sort of talked myself into it in running back with very affordable Adams and Jacobs. The problem is I actually more like the Buffalo just to hammer them and I think that they could put up one of those huge bounce back spots. I'm going to always be on Lamar. I am back on Lamar, and I have some Lamar lineups. I have some Burrow lineups, but that's the second most popular would be that game. Then I have the Detroit Seattle game as my third favorite. Then Jacksonville, KC, and rounding it out. The Chargers, but just the Chargers side of it in terms of quarterback stacks, Herbert and Williams, Allen. I like that. I like that quite a bit, running it back with Derrick Henry or DeAndre Hopkins, or even both, because I think that we know that Chargers games, as we say, they're, as we used to say about other teams, that it used to be the Pittsburgh Steelers when they had all the triple B thing. The Chargers are a little bit the Coors Field at times of the NFL. So I like to get both sides of it. And
before we move on,
I have to finish my thing real quick.
Okay.
Just Anthony Richardson, I do think just getting stacks of him every week is something I'm going to do. So I have like 7% of him this week, and I'm more spread out than usual this week, but I always am going to try and make some room for some Richardson lineup. Sorry, go ahead, Sheets.
No, before we move on, I do want to address the other sites before we move on to the next topic. I just to make sure it's nothing like violently different. No, I do have very similar type of exposures on FanDuel, except I'm getting a little, for whatever reason, I'm getting a little more Baltimore over on FanDuel, and I did want to kind of go.
Yeah, just I guess real quickly, I'll throw out there's a few FanDuel plays that are super cheap that I like. Tyler Higbee 5,100, Kadarius Toney 5,300. As you mentioned, the Lamar is too cheap over there, so should be more popular. And I do like the Lamar stacks better over there. So as sort of supporting what Sheets is saying about that, and because Josh Allen is so much more expensive over there with Diggs combined, he might be a little less owned on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, but still going to have some ownership. All right, let's move into running back, Sheets. What are you doing at running back? There's obviously this is an interesting spot because there's going to be a real condensed amount of chalk on guys who I even, Kelly we talked about all week, and then we got the A.J. Dillon because of the Aaron Jones news. Where do you stand with those guys in relation to the field, knowing that they're probably going to be 40-ish% in the larger field, large buy-in, smaller field stuff? I think they're going to be really, really high.
Yeah, for me, I'll start. I've heard both sides of the argument for Joshua Kelly. I mean, I've heard the argument for the fade, and that certainly makes some sense. There's a couple of ownership reasons and a couple of kind of scheme reasons. One is just because he's going to be really, really popular. That you can argue for it's a fade for that reason, but you need some kind of other reason for that besides that. And there's a couple of things that's sticking out. Number one is that you mentioned a couple of times that it's never quite that easy with the Chargers. That they usually just find these other guys somehow to pick up the slack. Yeah. The other thing to argue against Kelly, if you felt like it, is that it's kind of difficult to run against Tennessee in the first place.
Yeah, they're a pass funnel offense.
And what they like to do is just say, okay, we'll challenge you to go after us, and the Chargers certainly have the weapons to go after them. So it's just possible that Kelly has like a good game, or just because he's gonna be there for all the snaps. But it's possible it's not necessarily a featured type situation where they're going to really try to go to him. And it's pretty, Tennessee's always very stout. So that is also argument as well. So all of those led me to kind of tweak around. Listen, for what it's worth, I'm just going to be with the field on them in the lottery. I'm going to have like 30%, something like that. Not going to take a stand big one way or the other on that one. With respect to the other guys, I don't know whether this is lower than the field or not, but I only have like 13% AJ Dillon for whatever that's worth. So
yes, that's going to be below the field.
I suppose that's below the field, right?
Yeah.
And then the next highest owned running back I have, I think I'm like pretty spread out. I guess like I got like 15%. Well, I got a 15%. James Conner, I have that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know who I have a bunch of. I have a bunch of Rashad White. Nobody really wants to play him. And people's logic behind this, I just don't want to play him. That's really the only explanation. Like when we looked at the projection, we looked at the touches and all this stuff. It looked like a good play, but people just don't want to play him. That's not going to be good enough for me. I'm going to have a decent amount of him. I'm going to have like 20% in. And I mentioned James Conner. That's not a particularly sexy play either, but he makes sense to me. And Josh Jacobs, he makes a lot of sense in run backs with the Buffalo game. So I'm getting up like 15% of him. And then I'll just talk about the old guys I'm over 10% on. And then once again, I'll be back to Dameon Pierce at 14%. He shows up as I have him much higher owned on FanDuel than on DraftKings, but those are my primary running backs.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I just want to point out that one thing to support your White argument, most of these other running backs aren't even like the running back ones are not usually getting even 70% of the touches. Rashad White is getting like 70% of the usage just as of the first game. And the fact that it's Chase Edmonds and Sean Tucker behind him, I feel better about Rashad White, at least getting the usage. Whether what he does with it is another story, but I can support that argument a little bit, even though I'm not quite as high on him. Rohde, what are you doing at running back? That I'll close it out and we'll move over to receiver.
Yeah, I like a lot of the ones that Sheets mentioned. Maybe Derrick Henry and your run backs, like in that the Chargers, I like a Henry Mike Williams combination. Travis Etienne, I don't think he said. I really like him today. 7% ownership. I think he's leveraged off the Ridley type chalk in that game. I think he got like a decent game last week, and I don't think Bigsby's challenging him for that much work behind him. He's still getting a lot of the work. I'm also using like a Kenneth Walker, Amon St. Brown, and that like a mini stack correlation from that game that I really like. And then I think Gibbs, I heard he might get a little bit more work. He's a better play on FanDuel. I like him more on FanDuel a little bit. And then I like the Rashad White call. I should probably get a little bit more of him. I had a lot of him last week, and I should just go right back to him. So, yeah, I'm not getting as much Kelly. I'm a Packers fan. I'm not getting much Dillon. I'm getting more of the other options than Dillon. So I'm trying to use some of these more workhorse backs, Josh Jacobs, Henry, Joe Mixon a little bit, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, like those mid-range backs a little bit, so that I really like. So
Hey, I have to bring up two other guys, actually three other guys. I just had to get your opinions on them. One a little off the board, and two just kind of just obvious plays that we didn't even talk about. The off the board one is Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know what do you guys think of this, but I think there was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I guess, is out. And I've seen Pacheco kind of go off the past, and I think he's listen with all these kind of running backs. Is
Edwards-Helaire out? Because I don't have that.
I thought that was going to be. I thought that was the case, but
I've got him projected in right now. But
okay, yeah, but I was getting this of Pacheco in general. It doesn't seem like the type of game for him, but for whatever reason, he's like the one off the board guy I wanted to bring up. But the two kind of obvious plays that we didn't really talk about because I guess the way construction works is Christian McCaffrey and Tony Pollard, right? So you have Tony Pollard, who, listen, if you ask me what you're supposed to do in DFS, okay, you got a 10-point home favorite, with a good defense, and the guy that gets all the work, you're just supposed to kind of play him. And then you got Christian McCaffrey, who just, even though he had no touchdowns last week, freaking smashed, Is it just the way it is now that we're just going to prioritize receivers and just pay down for running backs? And if that's the case, I mean, if everybody's going to do that, might it not be better? Because I know you brought up Derrick Henry at 7,400. Might it not be better to kind of pay up for these Pollards and McCaffreys?
Yeah. Okay. So let me say my running backs first, real quick. So I do currently have Dylan and Kelly, like Sheets said, sort of around 30%. I'm trying to find other ways to get off of it. Kenneth Walker, I like. The problem is that there's just so much skepticism in Seattle about like whether they're going to use the other running backs. They have drafted that other kid high. So I'm a little nervous about it, but I do have a decent amount of Kenneth Walker. Tony Pollard is my highest owned spend up. Josh Jacobs with Joe Mixon right after him. And then again in the mid tier, David Montgomery as a pivot off those guys. And as Rohde mentioned, Gibbs, as well, but I do have Montgomery as the preferred one. I'm getting to a little more ATM than probably most people are. I'm getting to a little more Pierce. Derrick Henry as also another spend up. I'm always going to be below the field on McCaffrey. This is a matchup I actually do like McCaffrey in. But like we say he smashed. You definitely didn't want him last week. You want McCaffrey. If you're going to pay this much for McCaffrey, you need to have 30 plus. You can't, and he did score a touchdown. So
that's why he didn't get one. Okay.
Yeah, he had one running in. But this is the kind of matchup the Niners will just try to kitchen sink the Rams and beat the hell out of them. But they've also played some really tight games in the past. And I don't have McCaffrey that far ahead of Saquon usually. I like both of them this week, but I just had a hard time getting to McCaffrey. And I do think you should always be, to answer that, what Cheats brought up, I think in general, when you have a running back and a receiver with hugely similar upside, I'm almost always going to go receiver because the upside is usually greater. And the running backs, not only in addition to possibly getting hurt during the game, there is still going to be work for Eli Mitchell. There's going to be work for Deebo Samuel in the rushing game. There's no way it's going to be just McCaffrey. He's not getting all of the work. I mean, he got most of it last week. He had 22 out of the 33 team carries. So that's 66%. That's pretty high. But if you're paying $8,900 for a guy on DK, it's just hard to do. So those are the main guys for me. And with that, we can move over to wide receiver. I'll start this one off, and then we'll go to Sheets and then Rohde. I love Deebo Samuel this week, so that's partly why I'm also not going to get too much McCaffrey. I do like McCaffrey in general, but I think Deebo Samuel is going to have an explosive year. This is a matchup he's absolutely torched the Rams in the past. It's frustrating because of McCaffrey, it does feel like his upside is a little bit limited. I just think this is the spot where they could go nuts with Deebo, and he's 5,600. I want to get him while he's cheap. He's 69 on FanDuel. I really like that. So I'm going to be way over the field on Deebo Samuel in a game that I'm not really targeting, but I love Samuel specifically. Amon-Ra St. Brown, DK Metcalf, Stephon Diggs are all about the same for me in the 20% range. I do like Zay Flowers this week. I will have Higgins and Chase. And then at the cheaper ones, I'm sort of debating between Reed, McCarty. Really, those are the only. Oh, and then there's the other 3K guy, but I can't think of his name right now. For some reason, I don't have it on my scroll down. Oh, Hunter Renfrow, I like a little bit as a run back. He should get more work now, especially if they're coming back. You might see him especially as a DK play, as a possession receiver. You want to get some of Tyler Lockett, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. and DeAndre Hopkins. Those are the main ones to spend up. And then Tutu Atwell and Pakua, I'm probably going to have 10 to 20% of, somewhere around there. And I am currently trying to get in more Devontae Adams. That's the one, and Kadarius Toney. I know it's a lot of guys, but there's a lot to choose from today. Rohde, what do you like at receiver?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys to choose from. I mean, you got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, the guys you didn't mention, DK Metcalf, even T. Higgins, Chase. There's a lot of weapons out there today. You can get Pittman in that Indy stack you like. Devontae Adams I like a lot today. Amon I like a lot today. Debo's a good call. I really like him at 5,600 on DK. I really trying to get him in quite a bit in that game. I also like we talked on the DFS pick show. A lot of these guys have bounce backs weeks. Like some of the guys like Gabe Davis didn't have a good week. I kind of like him today. DJ Moore didn't have a good week last week. I kind of like him today. Christian Kirk didn't have a good week last week. I kind of like him a little bit today. So some of these secondary receivers that didn't really have a good week. Drake London didn't catch a ball last week. I kind of like him. I'll run back in my Green Bay stacks for large, some large field stuff. So like, yeah, I kind of like some of the bounce back spots today quite a bit, and hopefully those guys can have one of those guys have a big game that no one's on because they busted everyone in week 1.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you mentioned those guys. I forgot to mention Kirk as well. He's one of my favorite sleeper bounce back plays of the week. And I just love that game environment with Jacksonville. The only problem is you do have a little bit of rain, maybe not ideal throwing conditions, but still, I think it's a great game to target. All right, Cheats, let's talk about some tight ends. I actually think there's a pretty good number.
Well, see, you're trying to get me back because I didn't let you do your running back.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you didn't let
do my wide receivers. Yeah.
You're right.
That's fair enough. That's cool. That's all right. You don't want to know my wide receivers anyway. Actually, no. My highest owned wide receiver and again, I'm spread out. Wide receiver at 27% is Zay Jones, coming from that Jacksonville game. You already mentioned Ahmad St. Brown. Another guy I'm over on, significantly, is Drake London. I have like 20% of him.
Wow.
You already mentioned, Devontae Adams seems obvious. Diggs, Chase. I'm just trying to think of anything that you mentioned. Oh, again, if you guys need another reason to play Deebo Samuel, we don't really get into the weeds here, but apparently there's something about how good he is against zones, which they're expecting. So that's one of the reasons why he's going to project okay. And he's just an animal anyway.
Yeah.
And aside from that, people, it depends on how into the weeds people get, but people spend a lot of time on this Nico Collins thing. With what's his name, Noah Brown out there, we're talking about this Tank somebody or something.
Yeah, Tank Dell. I actually have a little bit. He's the 3K guy I was thinking of. Tank Dell.
Okay. I just also wanted to mention, because you mentioned DeAndre Hopkins, make sure he's playing. He was questionable as of recently. So
he's announced. He was announced in last night.
Oh, great. Okay. Just making sure we got that. And the guy that it's kind of weird. The guy that I'm really under on, which is just it's kind of like the reverse recency bias. Like, I'm going to seem like an idiot if I don't have a lot of him. I only have 4% of the Pakua. I guess I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things that if he ends up 60% owned and he busts, you're like, why would anybody play him off of that, that recency bias? And if you don't play him, you're like, and he has another 15 targets. I'm like, what are you doing? So I don't know. I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but I'm well under on him. And as far as other leverage stuff goes, yeah. So the guys I'm most over the field on, not surprisingly, are Zay Jones and Drake London as far as the receivers go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. All right, I'm going to jump over to tight ends, and I'll start this one off really quickly because I've got my exposures already up. My highest owned tight end, shocker, is Travis Kelce. I don't care that he looks a little banged up, and it's still not that much higher than everybody else, but I also like Laporta, Okonkwo. I do like Mark Andrews, especially in Lamar stacks. Obviously, I might have a piece of him or two outside of that. Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz, and then Kincaid and Musgrave are rounded out. I also just would be remiss if I didn't say that George Kittle has had some really big games against the Rams. I guess everybody on the Niners has had big games against the Rams, but George Kittle would be the other one who could attack that zone, as Sheets was pointing out about Debo. Similar for Kittle, not a guy we usually play in DFS, but we'll have 2 weeks a year where he puts up 30, and this could be one of those weeks. So I will throw that out, and then we will go to Sheets for his tight ends and then go to Rohde.
Yeah, so I have quite a bit of Travis Kelsey as well, and unlike you, I have him like a lot more than everybody else. I
Okay.
have between exposure and between the flex, which I have him in some, and the tight end, which I have him in some. I mean, I got him in like I probably think something like 40% of lineups. I think. So I definitely like that, and you see like a theme here. You know, like in this Jacksonville Tennessee game, I'm just kind of pretty heavy on that. The one thing I wanted to mention, okay, I wrote this down. When I was doing my builds, and this is something you got to really, think about. If you use SaberSim or any other optimizer, if you want to know the truth. So, with respect to the Buffalo tight ends, I heard, people made cases for Kincaid and for Knox, and you can make case for either of them. But when I was building lineups, especially with SaberSim, no matter what settings I used, it was trying to give me like double tight end from Buffalo, like both Knox and Kincaid with Allen or whatever. And sometimes with also Diggs or something like that. I didn't want to do that. So just so you guys know, I mean, one of the very few tweaks do I make as far as rules go. I made max one of those two. I just feel on a full slate of freaking games that double tight end from the two tight ends of Buffalo in the same lineup just is not going to do it for me. So
No.
I just figured I'd bring that up. The guys that you mentioned, yeah, Musgrave I have as my second guy behind Kelsey, and then Knox, Kincaid, Kongwu, Irv Smith Jr. And I am woefully underweight, and this is the just the dumbest thing. I can't believe it. That I don't have more Mark Andrews. Like if you like the Cincinnati, I mean, like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? So this is, and I guess you got to feel that way about a lot of your builds. Like there's got to be guys you feel uncomfortable not having too much of. And for me this week, it's going to be Andrews and I guess the Pakua, among
Mhm.
others. The other tight end that I have, I don't know, I'll just throw this guy in, Jake Ferguson. He got a little, I guess, unlucky last week. They gave him he dropped a couple of bad passes, whatever. Dak speaks really highly of him, and I don't know, he's one of a number of 3K guys that can get there. So, pretty much Kelsey, Musgrave, and most of the guys you mentioned.
Site, by the way, I just want to point out the site is back up. We're good. I just talked to the people there, and it looks
Great.
like I've been
Yep,
trying
I
to.
just refreshed it. Yeah. Good.
Yes. All right. So I'm gonna put a little note in there while Rohde goes through.
Now, I have a question? So I have to re-upload the stuff to the site, right? Yeah, I guess so. I guess I have to. I'll do that actually. I never actually did upgrade it to this upload, so I'm going to do that right now actually.
All right, yeah, site is back, so that's good news. Sheets is getting projections going up. Bobby's putting out a note, and I'll do my tight ends. As they said, I pretty much nailed it. They hit a lot of the tight ends I like. I do have some Kelsey. Musgrave's real high up. Jake Ferguson, I'm getting a lot of too that Cheats like. Chig is another one. Dalton Kincaid and Knox are two guys. You got to really decide on which one you want. I wouldn't play both. I guess projections was given you kind of make a rule to split those or something. If you're running something, Mark Andrews is back this week, so that'll be interesting to see how much work he gets. Some lower owned guys like I do like the Laporta call. Bobby had too as well. I like that game environment. So I like I'm on Laporta stack type thing. I use a lot of these tight ends in my stacks a little bit. Another guy like you can get Kittle's only 5'3". Darren Waller's 5'5", got a lot of work against Arizona. You could get a lot of work against Arizona. They could have a bounce back game. He got some catches last week against Dallas. Like he was being utilized a lot. So if he's 5'5", a little bit more expensive, but it definitely low owned against what we think is going to be a bad team. And if you want to get some Giants, I am really kind of off the Giants, but like he's a guy that I found that fit in that 5'5" range around that Debo Samuel, like that mid tier that I kind of need for my last fill spot, and then the 3K receiver type thing. So,
well, throw in one just for my sake. Throw in one Kittle in there, and just in the 5.5 range. Just I do like the Waller.
No, I said Kittle right before that. Like, yeah, the range I'm getting left with for my last couple spots, I can do like a 5K tight end and a 3K receiver, or a 3K tight end and a 5K receiver. So I'm doing like a Musgrave Debo, or I'm doing like a Waller Kittle, Dell or Reed type thing. That's the flip combo. You got kind of like a last piece flip there with those different. If you want to pay up to get a little different, because a lot of people will have the Dell, the Reeds, those 3K Hunter Renfro's at 3.9. You'll have that, and then you'll probably have like a Debo or something in that like a flex spot there. So you can kind of flip it and go with a more expensive tight end. Andrews at 6.3 that we really like too.
Yep. Those all make sense. And then I'm going to close it out here with, again, we have defenses and Sheets. Well, as Sheets will always tell you, that to play chalky defenses is not a good idea. This week, in terms of ownership, we actually don't have anyone like running away. The Bucks are projected to be the highest owned at 3,200. And they're projected to be 12%, I believe. So I am going to go ahead and say that, I actually think the Cardinals end up more popular than the Bucks for what it's worth. But Cardinals, for me, it's the Cardinals. I have a bunch of the Raiders. I just went really dumpster diving. I actually love the Jets defense play against Dallas. No one's going to do that. And Rohde and I talked about it when we did our show the other day. But at 2,700 to get arguably like what might be the best defense in football at 2,700 just feels like something we should take advantage of. I really like the Bears better than I do the other side of that. So I like the Bears against Tampa. I think Tampa is going to struggle all year long offensively. I like the Titans against the highly volatile, always turning the ball over Chargers, and then Ravens, Lions, Rams in that order for me. And it's mostly just spend downs is the reason why. So why don't you go Sheets and then Rohde?
Yeah, so I have 4 teams that I have over 10% on, and the other thing I wanted to mention is that I wasn't getting that much of any of them. So in other words, I didn't have to like pare them down to get under my 20% kind of like arbitrary threshold. So I just kind of got to these sort of naturally. But then again, it's interesting. I don't want to share my screen right now, but when you run SaberSim and you run a build, it'll tell you what your exposure is. Then it'll tell you what your total pool exposure is. So if you build, say, 5,000 lineups and say, give me your top 150, it'll give you your top 150. Then it'll tell you like what the percentage of the entire 5,000 a team would be on. So with that, I find that kind of useful. And like, for example, like the Buccaneers would be a full 7, they would be the chalkiest if I played all 5,000 lineups. So I guess they rate to be the best play, I suppose. But the guys that have the most of, it's both actually Bucks and also the Titans. Titans are my co highest owned along with the Bucks, and then you already mentioned the Cardinals. I like both sides of that Cowboy Jets defense. Jets, obviously cheaper. Dallas is a little. Listen, I would say it's sort of contrarian because I don't know if anybody wants to pay $4K for defenses, but they do have a pretty high ownership projection, which is a little surprising to me. And the other one that we haven't mentioned yet, I'll just throw in are the Lions. So I have the Lions at over 10% as well. So no big stands. Basically the guys that you mentioned. Bucks and the Cardinals seem the most logical. But Titans I have is listen. We talked about the Titans being a stout defense, and we'll see what happens. And Chargers are really, really good at messing stuff up. So let's see.
That's for sure. Yeah, go ahead, Rohde.
Yeah, my Chargers, they like to blow the game, man. They gave up like 8 minutes last week. I felt like they just wind down. They're like chucking it all game, and then like, hey, let's try to run the last 8 minutes out and lose this game, not score, kick a field goal.
Are they the best team ever at finding ways to lose games? Like they just do 5 games every year. I feel like they should have won.
I know. So we'll see what happens this week. This should be a winnable game for them, you'd think, but we'll see what crap they do. So I like the defense calling that. I'm getting some Titans for sure. Some other defenses that I have. Shoot, I clicked off the page. I like Cardinals obviously are one of my popular defense. That's why I'm not on the Giants as much. Maybe throw a little Bears in there, Baker turnover. The Bucks I'm getting a little bit of. The Lions I do like. That's a good call by Sheets. And then the Jets is what we talked about in the pick show, which I'm getting a little bit of them. I like that a lot. So, and then, occasionally grab like a Raiders or something where like you need a couple more $100. You're just trying to deep dive. I found myself getting to a lot of the Titans because I need that extra 200 from the Cardinals to the Titans a little bit. So
yeah,
I use that a little bit. So I'm always on the bottom dumpster diving. So
yeah. And I wanted to mention a few things because of what you mentioned just from some of the games that I like. I happen to love the Titans to win this game, and I also like them, because they're to get the 3 points at home seems kind of egregious. I know that every game is sort of like a semi-road game for the Chargers, so I guess maybe it's a wash, but I love the Titans in this one. I didn't talk about I didn't get to post bets because we had a little bit of trouble with the bet site. I love the Colts and Texans over, by the way. Another game that's a sneaky target one. And if you're gonna play a defense that you want to speculate on something, there are 3 linemen, and 3 out of the top linemen. One of them comes off the bench usually, but 3 linemen down for Seattle today. If you wanted to take a shot on the Detroit defense, I wouldn't fault anyone. I'm sorry, on the Detroit defense, I think that would be a reasonable move. Maybe Hayden Hutchinson sack fumble recovery for touchdown. Why not? And K9 Bronco agrees. Detroit all the way. All right. So let's talk about anything else that we may have missed. I'll just go through quickly, guys. I want to add to my between now and thing. I want to get more Zach Ertz. I want to try the Jordan Love lineup because it worked for me last week, Rohde. One of the few things I did right last week was the Love lineups. I like the Gallup thing. I didn't mention him earlier, but I really like Michael Gallup today. I think CeeDee Lamb is going to tough matchup, but I do like Gallup. Tyler Lockett, I'd like to get more of. I'd like to get some more Gibbs, as Rohde was saying, should get a little bit more work. I don't have that much James Conner. I might go some there, and I want to get more of Hopkins and DJ Moore, Evan Ingram. Those are the guys I have to get more of. I'm going to try and get significantly less of Kelly and significantly less Walker, because I think there's plenty of plays in that range where I can probably take a little more of a stand and be slightly underweight the super chalky running backs. So that's sort of what I've learned from this. And my hot take of the day, I did it with Rohde the other day, but my hot take of the day is that Deebo Samuel's on the Millionaire Maker winning lineup.
Then he does what? You faded off there?
He's the Millionaire Maker. He's on the Millionaire Maker winner.
Yeah, my I went to this is a little annoying. Like I scrolled through my list of players for just kind of like guys that are just way off the board that I have more than 5% of, and unfortunately for the second straight week I got nothing. So I really don't have too much as far as hot takes go here. I just kind of hoping that
you're playing
kind of a stupid way to play, but it's I'm just kind of hoping I get the right combinations here. Maybe, you know what, maybe and by the way, the Drake London, I don't have him in any stacks. He's just kind of a one-off there. The Zay Jones, I don't think Zay Jones is going to be particularly earth-shattering. You know what I mean? Like even I have a lot of them, so I guess that's something. But people are playing this Jacksonville game. You know,
I don't think they're going to play him much, though.
You don't think?
And he's a great guy to play because he's a touchdown threat. He catches a couple.
All right, so wait. So I'm going to give you a guy. All right, so this Buffalo thing like really just kind of annoyed me. Okay, because every one of these freaking Bills was giving me either Gibbs, either that's another story, but either Allen with Diggs and Kincaid, Diggs with Schultz Kincaid. I got like nothing with Gabe Davis, and I'm like, why? Like, why am I not getting anything with Gabe Davis?
I would force in a little Gabe if I were you.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to have to do here.
Yeah, I would. I actually have a Davis, McCarty, and the tight end lineup and fade Diggs and just a couple. Although mostly I'm not fading Diggs today. I really think that Buffalo is going to hammer them in the game. They're going to score like 40 points. I really believe that. All right, Rohde, sort of final thoughts. Anything you want to sum up with, and then take us out of here.
Yeah, you should definitely get some Diggs. I seen someone in the chat say DJ Moore and Mike Evans show today. I don't think I mentioned that game as a stack, but I do have Baker in kind of a main lineup with a DJ Moore run back. So I added a little bit of that as well.
Oh, God.
Okay.
All you need for Baker to go off is Rich B, one of our subscribers, Rich B, to complain. And why am I playing Baker? Every time he says that about anything, immediately the guy turns it around and like starts scoring touchdowns. So if Rich B does,
so I had to get one of Baker, you know, so that'll be a good game. And Chicago's defense got shredded by Jordan Love last week, so you know, like maybe Baker can do it. But yeah, so I don't have any Justin Herbert, if anyone, for me. Oh, you answered a question. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't have any hot takes today. So
I'll give you guys one other thing before Rohde takes us out. I'll tell you who you guys can root for in Survivor for me this week.
Oh yeah.
Just spread out over different pools, but mostly Denver, the Giants, and Detroit. So those are the 3 teams that you can root for me in Survivor. I have no bets this week. And I guess we could leave it to Mr. Rohde to take us out.
All right, guys. Well, I hope everyone has a good week too. And